This is Claire Michelle G. Balde. I'm from the National Economic and Development Authority. I'll be presenting today Module 4 of the Training on the Rehabilitation and Recovery Planning Guide, which focuses on the monitoring and evaluation. So the learning objective for this module is for the participants to be able to appreciate the general principles, importance and differences of monitoring and evaluation, to be able to discuss the importance of progress monitoring, to describe how to establish a monitoring and evaluation unit with its functions and responsibilities, and to be able to appreciate the importance of outcome evaluation. Beyond planning for recovery and implementing the rehabilitation and recovery program, it is important to monitor and evaluate the projects and activities in the plan. M&E ensures that we keep track of what is being done and assess the effectiveness of the interventions in terms of achieving the objectives and target results. It also informs us of the performance of the different actors involved in the interventions and the multi-sectoral patterns and linkages to better understand the issues and bottlenecks in the implementation. Through monitoring and evaluation, we're able to document our experiences and draw lessons from them that can serve as input in improving the effectiveness and the efficiency of systems and processes, as well as the overall relevance of the interventions. So now, let me discuss with you progress monitoring of the rehabilitation and recovery projects. So monitoring of projects and activities commence once we start implementing them, as we want to ensure that rehabilitation and recovery program stays on track to achieve its intended results, as well as to mitigate or minimize the possible aggravation of the impacts of disaster. Progress monitoring involves two activities. One would be to report on the status of implementation of individual programs, projects, and activities with regards to inputs, outputs, and process. Second activity involves problem-solving session to address the issues and concerns that cause the delay in the implementation. Field validation may also be undertaken in the process of monitoring to verify what is actually happening on the ground. At the local level, monitoring of projects shall be done by the concerned local disaster risk reduction and management councils. The LGU should be able to design an internal working arrangement for monitoring rehabilitation and recovery projects, including designing a specific unit that will be responsible for this task. Ideally, the monitoring unit should be institutionalized to ensure that monitoring will not be left out in the future rehabilitation and recovery efforts. The monitoring unit for rehabilitation and recovery projects need not be a new or separate structure. The LGUs can utilize its existing monitoring units for development projects. So what are the key responsibilities of the monitoring unit? One would be to establish a key performance indicator for projects to be monitored. Another would be to orient and assist involved offices and individuals on the monitoring system and tools to be adopted and used. Third is to consolidate the monitoring reports submitted by concerned offices. Fourth would be to maintain, build, and regularly update the database on the programs projects monitored. Fifth would be to coordinate with involved offices on the identified project implementation issues and concerns and recommended actions to be taken. Sixth is to prepare periodic status reports on the implementation of programs and projects for submission to the Council. And lastly, to validate the status report of the offices through field assessment of key projects as necessary. The organizational chart on the screen is an example of the structure for Project Monitoring Unit. This is the Typhoon Yolanda Project Monitoring Unit created by NEDA to assist them in monitoring of the programs, projects, and activities under the Yolanda Comprehensive Rehabilitation and Recovery Program. So NEDA was designated then to be the lead in terms of monitoring the programs and projects under the Yolanda Comprehensive Rehabilitation and Recovery Program as the Vice Chair of the NDRR-MC for Rehabilitation and Recovery. Although currently, the monitoring function is being undertaken or performed by an interagency task force led by the Office of the Cabinet Secretary. As you can see on the figure, the Project Monitoring Unit is designated with a specific person that would serve as a head to lead in undertaking the task and delivery of outputs of the Project Monitoring Unit. It is supported by technical and administrative staffs who are responsible for monitoring the projects and for the day-to-day operations. There is no specific suggested number of personnel for the LGUs for the specific Project Monitoring Unit. This would depend on the volume of the projects to be monitored as well as the capacity of other offices that will be involved in monitoring and reporting. In monitoring, there should be an appropriate tool in place. This should be developed and set up by the Project Monitoring Unit. The tool can be developed from the existing operational tools by the local government units, provided that these existing ones can be easily modified if needed. The existing monitoring tool of the LGUs for development projects, if you have any, can be adopted for this purpose. This is more efficient as there is no need for training staff in terms of the new monitoring tool. So the following are among the recommended features of the tool for monitoring. The tool should be simple, user-friendly, and cost-efficient. It should allow for standardized reporting. It should enable data sharing among the stakeholders, and it should be able to capture information required for fiscal responsibility monitoring. It is also ideal for the tool to have a combination of an online and offline tracking system. Online meaning this is web-based, and offline can be utilizing various database tools such as the MS Excel and the MS Access. An online tracking tool is effective for multiple users as updating can be done simultaneously. A complementing offline tracking tool would be useful in cases where problems are encountered on the online system. Should these two are available, it must be ensured that they are linked, interoperable, and that data information can be shared. The table that is provided on the screen provides a sample of the online and offline monitoring tool that was used for monitoring the Typhoon Yolanda projects and activities. Initially, a web-based monitoring tool was designed for utilization. This is the tool we called Empathy, which allows simultaneous uploading and updating of project information and generation of real-time reports. It also provides for citizens' feedback. However, this tool is highly technical and manpower intensive, which makes it difficult for the tool to be maintained. Another tool that was used for Typhoon Yolanda is the NEDA monitoring system, which was based on the existing NEDA Regional Project Monitoring and Evaluation System. This is an offline system using Excel for its database. This is the tool used by NEDA when we were monitoring the Yolanda projects when the specific task was assigned to us. So the next 3 slides shows the template for the NEDA monitoring system that we used for the reporting of the agency accomplishments. So it shows the financial accomplishments of the projects in terms of allotment and disbursement. It also shows the physical accomplishments of the projects vis-a-vis the target outputs. And lastly, it shows a summary of the status of the project completion to provide an overall picture of the progress of the implementation. In terms of monitoring and reporting arrangements, there should be clear arrangements that should be put in place and that concerned offices and individuals should be aware of this. First, there should be focal person designated in each of the concerned implementing office to facilitate smooth coordination with the project monitoring unit. The focal person will be the counterpart of the project monitoring unit in each of the implementing office. The report should also include both the physical and financial accomplishments vis-a-vis the target outputs and the funding requirements. It is also important that key issues and concerns in implementation and funding should be highlighted in the reports to be able to facilitate immediate action and response from concerned entities and to prompt decision or advice from the local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Discussion and problem-solving session of the issues and concerns should also be undertaken, and this can be done at the local DRRM council level and should be done, the problem-solving sessions should be done on a regular basis. The frequency of reporting and the prescribed date of submission of the reports can be decided by the local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. However, we recommend that at the minimum, an annual report should be prepared. Furthermore, the project monitoring unit can also conduct periodic field validation activities, particularly for major projects and those that have problematic implementation. Now we proceed with discussing about outcome evaluation. Outcome evaluation is undertaken to determine the effectiveness and efficiency of interventions. It assesses the achievement of target outcomes and whether the interventions have contributed to the achievement of results. This activity is most relevant to be undertaken for disasters that caused great damage and impact to the local government unit. The results of the evaluation shall inform what other assistance is needed and what policies and reforms should be adopted for better rehabilitation and recovery interventions in the future. So for an inclusive and balanced evaluation results, we recommend that a participatory approach be adopted where relevant stakeholders are consulted. Outcome evaluation can be done for the whole rehabilitation and recovery program or only for selected sectors. This would depend on the purpose of the evaluation exercise. For cost efficiency, not all projects and activities in the rehabilitation and recovery program are evaluated, but only a few selected projects. A set of indicators as criteria for project selection should be determined for this purpose. Outcome evaluation can also be done through a third-party expert, provided that the project monitoring unit or concerned implementing office should supervise the conduct of the activity, as they are more familiar with the projects and activities that are being assessed. So to wrap it up, it is important for the local government units to set up your respective monitoring and evaluation system to ensure that target outputs and outcomes are achieved. The features and the essential elements that were presented can guide you in establishing a monitoring and evaluation system that is appropriate to your needs.